What's up, everyone, and welcome back to the BallGame podcast. I'm Chris.
I'm Ortiz.
As you guys could see, the other three goons still haven't returned back. We're kind of getting concerned for them.
Don't know where they are.
Don't know where they are, don't know when they're coming back, but we got a very special guest to fill their void today. We got John Tortorelli. John's everywhere. You guys, if you guys are in this basketball Twitter social media space, I'm sure you guys have seen John around, but John, introduce yourself to the people, let them know where they can find you.
What's going on, guys? Thank you for having me on. Yeah, you can find me. I'm on Pick a Side primarily. I've got my own YouTube channel, but I'm excited to jump on with you guys and talk some ball today.
For sure. So the main topic for this podcast is just ranking NBA young cores. John put out a tweet, I think yesterday, with a little bracket finding the best young core in basketball. So again, if you guys don't follow John on Twitter, follow John. He's doing a poll for all the matchups, so definitely check that out. But the bracket has the Thunder as the 1 seed, the Rockets as the 2 seed, Grizzlies as the 3 seed, Magic as the 4 seed, Cavs as the 5 seed, Pelicans as the 6 seed, Spurs as the 7 seed, Mavs as the 8 seed, Pistons as the 9 seed, Blazers as the 10 seed, Wolves as the 11 seed, Hornets as the 12 seed, Pacers as the 13 seed, Jazz as the 14, Hawks as the 15, and the Wizards as the 16. And John's criteria for finding out who was in the young core was just 25 or under, unless they're about to be 26. So, for example, Brandon Ingram's birthday, I'm pretty sure, is September 2nd. He's 25, about to be 26. So he wasn't included in the Pelicans young core. And then just the core having realistic potential, the structure within the organization, and then how deep the core is, how many guys are in that core. But that's pretty much it. We could just get right into it with that 116 matchup, the Thunder and the Wizards.
Hey, real quick, before we dive in, what team was disrespected the most in the rankings?
For me, I think it's the Pistons. I think the Pistons have. You want to talk about core depth? They have They have like 5 guys now:
Right.
Cade, Ivy, Duran, Asar. If you want to include Beef Stew in there, so.
And dude, I had Pistons fans surprised, and my reasoning for it was like Cade missed the entirety almost of this last season, and meanwhile, the likes of Paolo completely stood out. The Cavaliers have 3 All-Stars already. So when I was making the rankings, I was honestly like, do I put the Pistons at 6? Do I put them at 9? And I went team by team. And in the end, I was like, dude, I had them below the Dallas Mavericks just because they've got Luka, who was a better prospect. So I felt like they're getting slept on. And then a lot of Knicks fans were not happy. I had Washington about them. What young core do you guys think is better?
I think the Washington young core is more upside than the Knicks would, especially after the Knicks traded Obi Toppin for a bag of chips.
Yeah, I think Washington just has more upside. You look at a guy like Bilal can end up between the two young cores. Bilal could end up being the best player between the two young cores. I don't think the Knicks have really anyone that could boom like Bilal could possibly boom. You still have Jordan Poole there. You still have Denny, who I think I might be higher on Denny than most people. I think Denny is a great NBA player. I think he's just in a shitty situation. So I'd give the edge to the Wizards there. Knicks fans are just delusional.
Yeah, they
That's what
are.
I'm saying. If Denny develops a 3-point shot, he's a starting caliber forward easy. That's an elite defender. And the other player, too, is Corey Kispert. I was trying to say, like, Corey Kispert makes that even better young core. He shot 42% from deep this last year, 75% at the rim, so he can do stuff off the dribble, too. And a lot of people are like, dude, nah, he is no Emmanuel Quickly. I'm like, come on now. Come on.
He's not an Emmanuel Quickly, but he's a damn good player. He's a damn good player that you want to have on your team as a complimentary guy for sure. So,
but yeah, I think that's everything. We can jump in now.
Yeah, so the first matchup, the Thunder and the Wizards. The Thunder core, I'm sure we all know about the OKC Thunder young core. They're the number 1 seed on here for a reason. They have Shea, Jalen Williams, Chet, Josh Giddey, Cason Wallace, Ousmane Dieng. If you want to include Luke Stewart in there, you can. And then Washington, like we just said, Jordan Poole, Bilal Coulibaly, Corey Kispert, Denny Avila. So I think it's pretty simple here. OKC.
Yeah, I think I'm going to lean towards the Thunder on this one.
Dude, they completely eviscerated the Wizards. I felt bad making this. It was like Pistons as the AC all those years of Blake Griffin versus the Bucks, and the Thunder got 97% of the votes.
As they should. As they should. So then the 2 seed was the Rockets, and they're going against the 15 seed Hawks. So Houston's young core, Amin Thompson, Cam Whitmore, who they just drafted. They have Alperen Sengun, Jalen Green, uh, Jabari Smith, and Tari Eason. And Atlanta's young core consists of they bolstered up their young core, if you will, in this past draft. I thought they had a pretty spectacular draft, but they've Trae Young, Kobe Buffkin, Onyeka Okongwu, AJ Griffin, and Jalen Johnson. I think it's pretty clearly Houston here. I think the only conversation to be made for Atlanta is that they have the best player out of these young cores right now, but that's really it. That's the conversation. Houston's young core is deeper. They have more potential as a group, I'd say.
I think too with the Hawks, as you point out, Buffkin, I was a fan of him as a top 10 prospect. They're one of those young cores that you kind of don't think of Trey being a part of it, but when you do, things open up because Jalen Johnson with Quinn Snyder now gets an opportunity to fill into that John Collins void off the bench. And realistically, I think that's one of those teams that can climb up in this with AJ Griffin playing as well as he did last year. So the Rockets dominated 83-17, but I think it's closer, like 65-35 here. The Hawks low key do have a quality young core.
I mean, and a guy we didn't even mention, Seth Lundy, who they drafted out of Penn State. I think Seth Lundy is going to come in and immediately be able to have an impact on an NBA court, especially for a team like the Hawks, who Trae Young thrives best when he's surrounded by 3-and-D wings, and that's exactly what Seth Lundy is.
Yeah, I'm also gonna lean towards Houston on this one. I feel like the first 3 seeds are just kind of pretty simple.
Pretty self-explanatory, yeah. The next matchup, the 3 seed Grizzlies versus the 14 seed Utah Jazz. The Grizzlies' young core, we all know it. Ja, Jaren Jackson, Desmond Bane, who just turned 25. My guy, Gigi Jackson, and Zaire Williams. And then Utah's young core, Walker Kessler, Keontae George, Taylor Hendricks, Ochai Agbaji, and Bryce Sensabaugh. So Utah, the thing with Utah is these guys are so young, so it's kind of hard to rank them. So for ranking them based on right now, Memphis obviously wipes them because of Ja Morant, because of Jaren Jackson, who just won a Defensive Player of the Year. But I think that Utah young core has real potential. Keontae George I think he's going to be a fantastic lead guard in today's NBA. He obviously lit the summer league on fire, but I have to give the edge to the Grizzlies here, but this is another one where I think it's probably closer than people think.
Totally. And I feel bad for Laurie because he was a year away from being included. I would have had the Jazz a lot higher if they had a top 30 player, and John Collins too missed out. But that's a fair point. Taylor Hendricks is also one of those guys that I had top 10 in this draft class. And we didn't get to see him in Summer League. So when you consider how early the Jazz are into this rebuild, how good of a job Danny Ainge does, and how good of a coach Will Hardy is, I mean, from a structure standpoint, there may not be a rebuild with more. So they got, the first 3-4 seeds really had no chance here. I was feeling a little bit like 60-40 here, but the Grizzlies quite clearly have the 2 best players, arguably the 3 best right now. So you can't go up against them.
For sure.
I agree. As you said, the Jazz are very young in their rebuild, and I think players like Ochai Agbaji are going to develop well in this system because I think Ochai Agbaji is a NBA-ready level player, as we saw when he was in Kansas. But you said, so like a few more years for the team to develop. So I think the Grizzlies definitely clear.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And John, before we continue, we just spoke about the Grizzlies. I gotta ask your thoughts. You made a video about him, I'm pretty sure, actually. My guy Gigi Jackson. What are the thoughts? You got to see him live in person in Vegas, so
He's so tall too. I walked by him at one of the casinos. So I was just walking by. He was at least 6'10". But what I will say is the Grizzlies for years have needed a secondary critter at the forward spots. They trade up to get Zaire Williams. They've taken shots on Jarrett Culver at one point, but they really needed a player who was raw, would probably fall into their laps. And that's exactly what Gigi Jackson was. He's got the handle, the athleticism, and the body control too, to kind of remind me a little bit of Pascal Siakam without the playmaking coming out of New Mexico. But Pascal's 23. This kid is 18 years old. So if you look at the Grizzlies G League team, what Taylor Jenkins has done with the young guys, I think this was a match made in heaven personally. I mean, Gigi Jackson needed to go to a franchise that had the opportunity, but also the structure in place because that is everything in player development. So as somebody that had him as a borderline lottery pick, I was shocked to see him fall to the second rounds. I felt it was all about where he ended up that would allow him to develop and kind of blossom into his full potential. If he can develop his passing, there's no doubt about it to me. When we do a redraft in 3 years, 4 years from now, he is going to be a top 15 pick. I'm all in.
100%. Completely agree. Took the words right out of my mouth, honestly. The next matchup is the 4 seed Orlando Magic versus the 13 seed Indiana Pacers. And we were talking about it before we started. Indy might be a team that you might add a little bit too low, in my opinion, now that I'm thinking about it. But Orlando's young core was Paolo, Franz, Anthony Black, Markel Fultz, and Wendell Carter Jr. and Jalen Suggs. Indiana has Tyrese, Jarris Walker, Benedict Mathurin, Andrew Nemhard, Obi Toppin, and Ben Shepherd. What do we think here?
I think this is another one where, as you said, the Pacers were a little bit underrated here. I think this one is going to be closer in the Twitter poll, but I'm going to lean towards the Orlando Magic simply because Paolo and Franz have proven themselves on another tier alongside with Tyrese Halliburton for the Pacers. But I just think the Magic are a more ready team to win. They just need Anthony Black has been looking great so far in summer league. I think they finally have their guard monster with all 17 of them, and I think they're gonna finally develop well.
Yeah, for sure. It's something that Matty J always says is it's a wings league, and Orlando has probably the most promising young wing duo in the entire NBA with Paolo and Franz. So if those guys keep developing, which there's no doubt in my mind that they will, they're going to be a problem in maybe even 2 years from now. Like they're not that far off. So I give the slight edge to Orlando here. I absolutely love what Indiana's doing with their rebuild. I think Benedict Mathurin was a steal at 9. Right, they drafted him 9 last year, something like that. 9,
They got
7.
Jarris at 8.
Yeah, wherever they drafted Ben Mathurin last year, I thought it was a steal. I had him as a top 5 guy last year. I think Jarris is just no matter where Jarris went, I felt like he was going to be a great value pick just because of what he brings to the table. He's a guy who you could plug and play. He's only going to help your team. He's not going to take shots away from anyone. And then you have a guy like Tyrese Halliburton who's going to set the table for everyone, make everyone's life easier. So I think that they're doing a great job there in Indiana, but you got to give the edge to Orlando here.
It's crazy because Paulo Banchero has unlimited potential, and he plays the perfect position. But Tyrese Halliburton is a 20 and 10 guard at 23. Then every single year post high school, I was looking at this yesterday, has shot 40% from downtown, never has not. And when you consider all the unselfish play styles of each creator here, there are guys in the Pacers like Bruce Brown who don't even get included on this list. But with Rick Carlisle and the job they've done the last year and a half, much like a team like the Jazz who have just started rebuilding, I thought there should have been 50-50, honestly. I thought it should have been a close call, but no, the Magic, they kind of cruised through 69-31. So if you ask me, honestly, I had the Pacers at 13, the Magic at 4. Look at these two young cores, and I'm like, dude, what really is the difference between Anthony Black and Benedict Mathurin from a who's better standpoint? I think if Benny can start to play a little more free, a little more unselfish, and he locks in on defense because he's doing none of that as a rookie, you're looking at the top 3 of the Pacers being better than the top 3 of the Magic for the next couple of years. So I might go with Indiana here.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, Andrew Nemhard for them, it's just, you want to talk about a diamond in the rough. He's one of those guys, I always talk about this. I said it about Jalen Brunson years ago, these college guards who are undersized, who end up falling in the draft. And it's just, you watch them in college and there's no questions they'll be a good NBA player. You get that same just from watching Andrew Nemhard at Gonzaga. There was no question that dude was going to be a good NBA player, and there was no reason for him to go as late as he did in the draft. It's kind of mind-boggling to me that it keeps happening. The same is probably going to be said about Marcus Sasser in a few years, honestly. And he went earlier than expected at 25, but
I think
yeah.
it's the age.
Yeah, that's what it is. The age throws people off. I mean, you look like a guy like Jalen Brunson. Like this is always my prime example, but like he won 2 fucking national championships in college. He was the player of the year. How the fuck does that guy go in the second round? Like it literally makes no sense to me. Makes no
And he had a
sense.
bad summer league too.
Yeah.
But the other example is Malcolm Brogdon because he had injury concerns and he was like 24 coming out. And he fell all the way to like pick 36.
Yeah.
And that was the Magic's. He was 24 as a rookie. Or not the Magic's, the Bucks. Perfect pick.
Yeah, for sure. So the next matchup is the 5 seed Cavs versus the 12 seed Hornets. The Cavs have Darius Garland, Evan Mobley, Jaron Allen, Isaac Okoro. If you want to include Imani Bates in there, we can. And then Charlotte has LaMelo, Brandon Williams, Mark Williams, Nick Smith Jr., and Amari Bailey, who they just drafted. I think it's pretty obviously Cleveland here.
Yeah, I mean, just look at oh man, I forgot the word I was looking for. But yeah, Cleveland.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to, you look at the point guards, LaMelo and Garland, whoever you want to say is better, it doesn't really matter to me, but they're in the same tier of player. And then you look at the next guy, the Cavs have Evan Mobley, the Hornets have Brandon Miller, and that's the answer right there.
Yeah.
And it's a shame because we don't know when Evan Mobley is going to hit the peak of his career. He's just 22, 23. But when he does, you're already looking at a guy who's been the deep discussion year or two. And if he can just fill out a little bit offensively, can space out the floor some, you're looking at what I compared to out of the draft Kevin Garnett. And that was a lofty expectation, but all the makeup was there for him to become a top 5 player in the league. But it's going to take time. Might be 2 years away from being 2 years away. And if that's the case, the Hornets this year, they might make a case of the better core. But when you consider Jared Allen has made an all-star game too, I think Cleveland quite clearly for now is safe. If you come back in 3 years, if Evan Mobley doesn't take the step forward, then things might change here. Because
It really depends on how Brandon Miller develops in these first few years.
that's the key.
Yeah.
Not just Mobley developing, but Brandon, because he can be an all-NBA player. He can be a really good starter. Which of the two happens? That's going to determine everything for them. Because I didn't put Miles Bridges on here. I don't want to talk about him. But the Hornets want that compliment to LaMelo, who makes the game easier. And I think part of the concern with Brandon Miller being selected at 2 was he has all the same strengths and all the same shortcomings as Melo, right? They don't complement each other by doing what the other doesn't do well. And the lack of rim pressure, the lack of finishing from those two, that inside force to open up the game, I think that's what kind of limits the potential of each of these two guys put together.
Yeah, for sure. And, like we mentioned earlier, you were there at Vegas. You got to see Brandon Miller up close. What are your takeaways from Brandon Miller Summer League so far?
I was relatively impressed. In the first game, he had Wemby guarding him, and every single time he had to get a switch because Wemby would block his shot from even 3-4 feet away. But you can tell from a guy that's going to be 21 years old as a rookie, he is ready to contribute as not just a shooter, but as a ball handler too. He's got a good feel one-on-one, and that's something that doesn't get talked about a whole lot, that he can create in that in-between space. My only concern was that his shot release is a little bit lower. And so that allows it to be quicker, but it's also a lot more contestable. But considering how advanced his style is, he can be, for sure, the type of complement to LaMelo that opens up the game in some ways. And I liked his feel more than anything. I thought that is something that didn't get talked about at all, really, pre-draft. It was just this shooter. It's like, no, he can create offense one-on-one. He can run pick and rolls. And even at times have LaMelo play off the ball when needed. And I think he can, in certain stretches, run the offense when LaMelo's out the game. Because, as we talked about before with the Magic, this is the type of player, a 6'9" wing who can do a bit of everything, that thrives in today's day and age to some degree.
For sure. Me personally, I agree with everything you said, especially just his feel, his ball handling, and his playmaking. I thought his passing was incredible out there in Vegas. And I thought he did everything that he was advertised to do. I thought he was shooting threes, like you said, quick release, never scared to pull the trigger. That was moving on.
Yeah.
He was great as a ball handler, I thought, great in the one-on-one isolation game. And that Hornets Summer League team was dog shit. So a lot of his shortcomings, his struggles, I don't really put too much stock into. All right, we're back.
We're back. Nice.
You kind of froze at, I think, a lot of his shortcomings.
I think a lot of his shortcomings were, I don't put too much stock into them. I more put stock into the things that I saw that I think can translate. I think that's what, when you're evaluating prospects coming into the draft and then in Summer League, that's what we're looking for. We're looking for translatable skills. So I thought Brandon Miller showed a lot of translatable skills that we all knew he had. So I think he's going to be a really good NBA player for sure. So the next matchup is the 6 seed Pelicans versus the 11 seed Timberwolves. The Pelicans have Zion, Trey Murphy, Dyson Daniels, Herb Jones, and Jordan Hawkins. Brandon Ingram wasn't included, like we said. He turns 26 in a month. And then Minnesota has Anthony Edwards, Jaden McDaniels, Naz Reid, Nikhil Alexander-Walker, and Leonard Miller, who they just drafted. If you want to include Jalen Clark in there too.
Josh Minot. John
He
Minot
looked,
in this game.
he looked great.
He did. He's 6'9" forward. All right. So for this, God, hold on, man. What the heck? Dude, the Timberwolves wiped the Pelicans 65-35, which is kind of surprising. Kind of, because Zion is a All-NBA player already when he's on the floor. Trey Murphy's a developing all-star, and I think Dyson Daniels and Herb Jones, too. There's 2 elite defenders already. So I felt like the Pelicans should have won this, personally.
I
Slightly.
completely agree.
Yeah,
I give the edge to the Pelicans. I'm a big Dyson Daniels guy. I'm a big guard guy. That's why we got the Cade Cunningham jersey hanging. I was very high on Anthony Black going into the draft. I love a big guard who could defend, and that's exactly what Dyson Daniels does. So I think, honestly, in this specific matchup, I think Dyson Daniels is the edge there. I think Zion and Anthony Edwards, you could go either way with that. I even think Trey Murphy and Jaden McDaniels, you could kind of go either way with that. But then when you get to that third guy, I'm taking Dyson Daniels over Naz Reid, Nikhil Alexander-Walker, Leonard Miller, all those guys. So I think that was a determining factor for me.
I'm giving the edge to the Pelicans as well. I mean, we saw what this young core together could do. I mean, they were the 1 seed in the Western Conference, which we all revere as the toughest conference there is, and so well-rounded. But I'm giving the edge to the Pelicans, as John said. The young core is just. I think they gel more together. They complement each other's game more.
Now, what's your guys' thoughts on Anthony Edwards? What is his ceiling? And for people that have put him like me into the All NBA discussions, do you think he can this year gain a 260 mil?
100%. I think he has everything you're looking for in a number one guy. And I think it starts not even with what he does on the court, but just his leadership and just the way he goes about things. I mean, I don't know him personally, obviously, but from what I could see, he just looks like he has all the human qualities of a guy who could be the number one option on a championship NBA team. And then you look at his game. He's been getting better all 3 years in the league. The efficiency is improving. The playmaking is improving. He's a guy who looks like he could potentially be an all-NBA defender at some point in his career. So I don't know why we would think he's not going to keep improving. So yeah, I think he has top 4 to 7 in the league potential. I don't think he'll ever be the best player in the league just because of his size, but I think he could be right up there with those guys for sure.
I couldn't agree more. I think you hit the nail on the head there. I mean, his intangibles on and off the court, I think, is where it lies the most, especially, as you said, with his leadership factor. Just kind of taking that role as a 22-year-old human being.
And isn't it crazy how that works? When Ant came into the draft, people thought that personality was, oh, no, he's a little bit too on the happy-go-lucky side. He's not serious enough about basketball. And it turned out that was the right type of personality to actually track as to Minnesota, to be that rare star who kind of has that pull to him. And that was viewed as a negative. It's actually quite a positive. So looking back now, it's kind of funny how quickly a narrative can change, but even then it hasn't actually changed yet. People still kind of feel like, maybe it's a little bit too excited, a little bit too animated, but not, man. He's one of one.
Yeah, he's a special guy. Special
for
guy
sure.
for sure. So the next matchup is the Spurs versus the Trailblazers. The Spurs, obviously Victor, Devin Vassell, Keldon Johnson, Jeremy Sohan, Blake Wesley, and Malachi Branham. Trailblazers just started their rebuild, if you will. Scoot Henderson, Anthony Simons, Shaden Sharp, Chris Murray, Ryan Rupert. I think it's pretty clearly San Antonio here. They have Victor Wembanyama. I think that's pretty much it.
I think I agree with that statement. It's
You
hard
know?
to. It's hard
Keep
to
going. Keep in it.
Oh no, I'm good. There's not really much to say about the Spurs then, other than they have Victor Wembanyama in the first round matchup at least.
Right. I like the Spurs quality core. It's deep with Jeremy Shohan going a year two. Devin Vassell's an underrated wing to this average 18 a game. But I'm going with the Blazers here. The Blazers have one of, if not the most stacked young backcourt in the entire league. Anthony Simons is already one of the top scorers in the league when he's gotten that starting opportunity, that shines lead creator. But Scoot Henderson is one of those rare prospects too. A guy that in many draft classes would be the first overall pick. A lot like a Derrick Rose. I compare him to De'Aaron Fox and John Wall's built. And he's already got the mid-range game that Fox had to get to 24 years old to develop now. And then you look at what Shaedon Sharpe can be. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I am one of the people that think Shaedon Sharpe can be the best player from the 2022 draft. It's not likely, but when you look at a player of his skill set, a 48-inch vertical translates to the NBA. High-level three-point shot, day one at 19 years old, surely translates to the NBA. First step, feel as a ball handler, it's a little bit underrated. And then the time, the patience from an organization that's willing to build around him, I think the potential for this young trio of guards is unlimited. And it falls off after those three. Personally, when you look at how many stars the Spurs have, it's one, maybe two with Shohan, but I think it's less likely he becomes an all-star. Maybe Devin Vassell is. But with Scoot Henderson, you know. With Anthony Simons, you've seen. And with Shaedon Sharpe, you believe. So that's why I'm all in on the Portland Trailblazers.
That was a good little monologue there. I definitely like that.
But
I'm mixed on Shaedon Sharpe. Shaedon Sharpe is just such a tough guy for me to grasp. He has unlimited potential. There's no reason at all. There's just something that's telling me like, nah, don't put your stock into this guy. I don't know why. It's just like a little tiny voice in my head. Everything you said about Scoot and Anthony Simons, I completely agree though. I think Scoot is going to be right there with Victor as the best player in this class. Like he is that good of a prospect. I mean, we saw it from the first second he stepped onto the summer league floor. He is everything you want in a lead point guard. So I definitely like that. I really do think this Spurs young core is deeper than Victor, though. I'm a huge fan of Blake Wesley and Malachi Branham. I mean, and we saw it in this summer league. I think those are two guys who could not only be good NBA players, but also be good NBA players playing off each other. I think they complement each other really well to potentially be the backcourt of the future for the Spurs. I think Blake Wesley might be the fastest player in the NBA. He's an insane first step. And then Malachi Branham, he's a professional scorer. That's what he is. Elite floater game, could get to his spots. So I think those guys are very underrated young players in today's NBA. And I think they're going to have really long and successful careers.
And those are players that aren't built for summer league. Like they struggled because in that type of setting, you have to be selfish, and they're not inherently selfish. So you make a great point. The Spurs have a deep young core. You extend it past those two guys. There are undrafted guys on this team like Julian Champagnie and Don Barlow, who nobody knows, but have shown out in summer league with all the tools. They get to play for Greg Popovich. So the counter against my point is the Spurs are one of the top teams in developing young talent. Barlow, he's a 6'9" big that can switch on to guards, has a mid-range game at 19, 20 years old, and was a late bloomer in a weird time for prospects where because of COVID, dude, he didn't get to have a normal experience at college. So you look at what the Spurs have kind of focused on in the draft, and it could be a special team filled with 6'9" forwards and stuff like that. So I see where you're coming from here. But I'm still going with the Portland Trailblazers, man. I'm all in on Shane. And I think a lot of people look at him as Gerald Green when I think he's a lot closer to a Zach LaVine.
Fair enough. Can't really argue that.
Only time is going to tell us.
Yeah, for sure. So, you have any closing thoughts before we move on?
No.
I thought you were about to say something. No. All right. So the next matchup, the one that everyone's probably been waiting for, the 8-seeded Dallas Mavericks versus the 9-seed Detroit Pistons. My two teams. The Mavs have Luka, Jaden Hardy, Derek Lively, Grant Williams, Omax Prosper, and Josh Green. The Pistons have obviously Cade, Jaden Ivey, Jalen Duran, Asar Thompson, Beef Stew, and Marcus Sasser. This is a tough matchup for me. It really hits close to home. These are my two teams. Fuck the Bulls. These are my two teams. The easy answer is to say the Mavs because of Luka. But man, I don't even know. You guys could go first. This is really tough for me. I'm kind of thinking about it right now. Kind of at a loss for words.
Well, as you said, we're judging this on a core basis, and obviously you look at the Mavericks, and they have the far and away the best player under 25 in the NBA, first and foremost, in Luka Doncic. But when you're looking at an NBA team and a roster, I think the Pistons have filled out more NBA ready players to help win in a few years behind Cade Cunningham, as we know is a generational talent. I'm leaning towards the Pistons here simply because of depth.
Dude, it's all about what you value here, because the Pistons got a Sorare Thompson with the 5th overall pick in this draft. Now, I don't know about you guys. I don't trust the Pistons general manager, Troy Weaver, at all to build a basketball team, because I don't know if he has the right values in place to maximize Cade's development. I'm a little bit worried that he's infatuated with big men and he hasn't prioritized shooting in the year 2023. And when he took a Sorare Thompson, I said to myself, this is not going to work. Sorare Thompson has a raw jump shot, and he is a guy that you want to be more of a primary focus. But with Jaden and Cade, he's not going to quite get that enough opportunity, so to speak, to develop. But then I watch him in Summer League, and I'm like, okay, you get what many people look at as a freakishly athletic point forward that has all defensive potential. Actually, he's developing a three-point shot at 20 years old, going on 21. So he's a little bit older as a prospect, but he has all the physical makeup to be perfect in transition alongside Cade. I saw Jalen Duren. He looks taller than 6'10". He looks like he's 7 foot. He's developing a little bit. He's testing the studio space at Summer League, seeing if he can create a little bit for himself. And Isaiah Stewart's an underrated player that's gotten better every single season. I see it with the Pistons. I like what they've done. But part of my skepticism is not just that Troy Weaver hasn't quite shown he can maximize the young core. It's also Luka Doncic is better than Cade Cunningham. And unfortunately for Cade, he was hurt all this last season. He wasn't able to build off a rookie year where we were getting off strong. And so that hurt the Pistons here straight up. If he played last year and took a step forward, they would be a lot closer to the Magic right now. They're at 4. That being said, given Josh Green's on that young core, you've got Derek Lively, who to me has, Tyson Chandler type potential. Jaden Hardy was maybe the steal last year's draft class. I'm going to lean Dallas because in the big picture, the odds of Cade being a top 4 player in the league by 24, it's just not something you expect. So I'm going to be completely straightforward here. If you got Luka, I think you're going to go far in this bracket, man. You have to.
Yeah, I kind of agree. On Sorare Thompson, I do think that they're going to develop him well, and 2 completely different scenarios, but you look what the Pistons did with Hami Diallo, and I think Sorare Thompson could kind of replicate some of that, because Hami was almost on his way out of the league when he got to Detroit, and he had a little bit of a revival. He was one of the best rebounders at the guard/forward position, just getting out in transition, kind of similar things to what you expect Sorare to do. And the defense is going to translate for Sorare. So I don't think he's going to have a problem adjusting, but yeah, I think I have to give the edge to the Mavs. This really hurts, but I mean, like you said, you look at Luka and Cade. Luka obviously clears there. Then you look at Jalen Duren and Derek Lively. Who's to say Derek Lively doesn't end up being a better player than Jalen Duren? I lean Jalen Duren, but Derek Lively's a damn good prospect. Same thing with Jaden Ivey and Jaden Hardy. Like, Jaden Hardy's fucking good at basketball. He could be just as good as Jaden Ivey. I'd probably say Jaden Ivey is going to be better from what I've seen right now, but Jaden Hardy could be right there. Omax Prosper is definitely a downgrade in comparison to Sorare Thompson, but I think Luka overall just gives the Mavs the edge there. So I'm going to move the Mavericks on here. It really hurts.
And I think a lot of Maverick fans were seeing this because they won 74-26. I thought like 10-5 fell with the Pacers and Magic. They should have been 50-50 personally. It should have been, what do you value more? And to see the Mavericks clearly and easily kind of eviscerate the Pistons, it did hurt me. I felt like I set you guys up. I feel like I set up Detroit to be bouncing around one a little bit.
Yeah. I think, and when we look back on this in 3, 4, 5 years, it probably depends on Jaden Ivey, honestly, if I'm being completely straightforward here. I think Cade, we kind of know what we're going to get from Cade. He's never going to be on Luka Doncic's level, and that's fine. Like, no one's going to be Luka. Cade's going to be a damn good NBA player. Guys at that size with that type of playmaking feel, they really don't come around that often. So I have no doubt in my mind Cade's going to be great. But like I said, he's not going to be on Luka's level. So he needs a running mate. He needs a number 2 guy. So that's where Jaden Ivey comes into the equation. If Jaden Ivey develops and becomes a superstar, then we look back on this in 3 and 4 years, it's going to obviously be the Pistons. So for sure. So the next matchup would be
in the second round.
yes, we're in the second round now.
You look at the bracket. I should have sent you guys like an image to toss up on the screen here, if it will let me. The set I'm using is Challenge-O. Okay. So the second round matchup would be Thunder versus the 8th seeded Mavericks. That would be the first matchup. If you guys want to write this down, I'm going to go through the entire 4.
Yeah, I got it.
Okay, cool. So then after that, we've got the 4th seeded Magic versus the 5th seeded Cavaliers. Then we've got the 2nd seeded Rockets versus the 7th seeded Blazers. I may have had the 7th seeded Spurs. I may have had the Blazers going on, but they lost pretty comfortably. And last, we have the Grizzlies going up against the Timberwolves, who are the 11th seed. They upset the Pelicans here.
All right. So let's just get right into it with the Thunder Mavericks.
Want me to start?
Go for it.
Dude, I know I said before, Luka Doncic overrided anything Detroit had, but when you look at what Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is, he's a year older, just turned 25. Happy birthday, Shai. I don't know why Shai can't be a top 5 player himself, because you talked about before of Cade, 6'7" playmaker. Shai is a 6'7" guard that does everything on the floor. And defensively, too, he's better than Luka. So when you look at how deep the Thunder gun core is, how good of a job Sam Presti's done, honestly, since 2016, not even 2016, because he made the Serge Ibaka trade, but since 2014, trading James Harden 2013, he's been a perfect GM. Mark Dagnall, really underrated young coach that makes these young guys defend. We don't know if Jason Kidd's going to be the Mavericks coach in a year. So when you consider structure, I think because of how good Shai's going to be, how good he's been, how much he's improved, you're comfortable putting them above the Mavericks because, you look at Ousmane Dieng, talk about Summer League. In year 2, he's looking the entire part of a guy they took in the top 10 above Jalen Williams for a reason. They thought he had unlimited potential to be a secondary creator and a great one at that. Chet Holmgren, don't even get me started on him because we talked about Shaedon and Paulo. He's going to be one of the top 3 or 4 players in that draft class, and I'm excited to see him in year 1.
For sure, yeah. I think I have to give the edge to the Thunder here for pretty much every reason you just said. We're ranking the young cores, the criteria, like we said in the beginning. Structure is a part of that. I think the Thunder clearly have the better structure in place. And then the depth of the core. The Thunder young core has unlimited depth. They have a million guys, so
I have a million draft picks to follow that up. So it's
yeah, they're not done.
They'll never
more
be
moves to
done.
make.
Yeah, and like you said, Shai could obviously again. No one's going to be Luka Doncic, but Shai could be right there with him. So
Agreed. Yeah, I'm also going to lean the Thunder on this one. Not much really to say. You guys, I said a lot about them. That I just want to be repetitive, but yeah, the Thunder taking this matchup.
So the next matchup is the 4 seed Magic versus 5 seed Cavs. This is an interesting one. Say it off the rip. I'm gonna take the Magic here. I think Paolo has a higher ceiling than a guy like Evan Mobley, and I think Franz Wagner has a higher ceiling than Darius Garland, in my opinion. I think the Magic have more depth in their core, and in terms of structure, I think you could go either way with it. So I give the slight edge to the Magic here.
Let me ask you guys a question. What is Franz Wagner's ceiling if he's going to be better than Darius Garland? What do you think? Because I have a hard time kind of figuring out what he's going to be at his best.
I think he could be a top 20 player in the league, honestly. He's another one of those guys I'm going to keep the feel for a guy at that size, it's really not normal the way he moves, the way he could he's one of the best finishers in the league, and he's still one of the youngest players in the league. So I just think he's going to keep adding to that. The 3-point shot is going to come along. He's going to be a plus defender just because of the length he has. And like we said earlier, it's a wings league. So if I'm starting my team, honestly, I would take Franz Wagner before I take Darius Garland.
Yeah, it's crazy. He's 6'10" and 21. And he averaged 3.5 assists this last year. Would have been 4.5 if they had some damn shooters. So they added in Jet Howard. They even signed a Joe Ingles, which I thought was great for them. And with France, I think that the question is how good of a shooter is he? That was his swing skill coming out of Michigan. So far in the league, he shot around 35, 36%. You put real shooters around him, does that go up to 38? Because then you're looking at a dynamic 3-level score. He just averaged 19 in year 2. So you ask me, I think I'm going to go with the Magic here. But the Cavaliers are underrated because Jared Allen had one bad playoff series. Lights are too bright, but this is a guy who was a top 10 center. He is still, he's 25 years old. I'm really just infatuated with the potential here, Paulo and Franz, and I need to see that because I don't know if Evan Mobley is going to be a top 3 player. With Paulo, I have a much better confidence that he will be that if he continues improving it. And to speak on Banchero real quick, I think he can be the best player in the world if he fully realizes his potential. He's got to get better as a finisher through contact, a pull-up shooter from mid-range, and then lastly, he's got defensive tools. He's going to be an elite scorer. He's going to be a really good playmaker. But what else does he do? That's going to take him from really good all-star to a legitimate superstar that the Magic got. And honestly, that the Magic almost lucked out of not taking because things could have played out a little bit differently if they took a Jabari Smith.
For
sure. This one is once again one of those toss-ups that you would. I'm gonna lean slightly towards the Orlando Magic as well. I think, as Chris said, with it's a wings league, and Franz Wagner and Paulo Banchero are obviously 2 of the best young wings in the NBA, and I think additions such as Anthony Black in that backcourt with Jalen Suggs and Wendell Carter, who's been developing decently at what is he still on 25?
Yeah.
I think he's a decent starting center in the NBA who would start for most teams he'd play on. So I just think they have a sling in the Magic here.
Yeah, for sure.
You
The
know what,
Cavs are
Wendell-
weird.
Yeah, they are weird. Wendell just turned 24. He's a lot younger than I thought.
And he's great. He's another one of those guys who you look at his career trajectory, he's only getting better every year. He's, I'd say, an above average playmaker as a center. We know what he could do defensively. He even started shooting the 3 ball a little bit last year. So like,
He's
yeah,
taking 4 attempts a game, man. It's
Yeah.
like kind of like beef stew. He's getting the attempts up. He's 36% good for a center. I mean, he's one of the most underrated players in the league when healthy. And that was the issue with Chicago, of course.
Yeah, for sure. And the Cavs are just so weird. I love Jared Allen, the player. I like Evan Mobley. I never thought that was the answer for them, the 2 of them together. I think Evan Mobley needs to be a 5. I think their priority with Evan Mobley, I know you could say he wasn't ready for that yet because of his weight or whatever, but I think their priority should have been developing that dude as a 5, as a full-time 5. I just think with the spacing with Jared Allen and Evan Mobley, like, yeah, it worked for them last year, but to what extent? They got obliterated in the playoffs, and they couldn't fucking score in that first round matchup versus the Knicks, and a lot of that had to do with the spacing on the court. So, Cavs are weird.
They've got to find that perfect complement to Mobley that's strong enough. And, I like the minivan signing, George's name, but he's not going to be it defensively. So you make a good point there.
For sure. So the next matchup is the 2-seeded Rockets versus. Did we advance the Spurs or the Blazers?
Yes, we got the Spurs.
So the Rockets versus the Spurs. I'm gonna give the edge to the Spurs here, honestly. I think the Spurs have the best player in the young core with Victor Wembanyama, and I think they have a lot. The Rockets core is deep, but I think the Spurs core is deep too. And when you look at those other guys, the swing factor here is probably Amin Thompson and how he develops. But I think Jeremy Sohan's great. I think he could, he's right up there with Jabari Smith, with Tariq, and both guys I love dearly. But Jeremy Sohan's right there with those guys. I think Malachi, like I said before, Malachi Branham and Blake Wesley are 2 of the most underrated young guards in the entire NBA. So I'm going to lean the Spurs slightly, like ever so. This might be the closest one we've done so far, honestly, in my opinion.
I'm going the other way here because talk about Jabari Smith. Last year, he was worse than Jeremy Sohan, but his coach is Steven Silas. Steven Silas is opening limited. I'm not actually running plays with this guy. I know he's a shooter, but he's just going to spot up in the corner. And, Kevin Porter Jr. is gone. You then bring Ime Udoka, who brought the Celtics to the finals for the first time in 13 years and turned that team around entirely. And you see Jabari Smith and how well he played in Summer League. He was terrible. I went and saw him in the first half. Then I saw him in the second half versus the Blazers. And I saw two totally different players. And I think to myself, the number one guy here, it's Eamon Thompson's team. This is somebody, you're hearing this from someone that compared him to John Morant. So you wouldn't be surprised to hear me say that. But he is the closest thing. He's 6'7", unselfish playmaker. That got a lot of criticism that he can't shoot. But what if his first step is so good that you can sag off 4 feet from him and he's still going to blow right by you? And he's also got a high vision. He's a good enough ball handler. Defensively, he had like 5 blocks in the one game that he played. Eamon Thompson has legit top 10 player potential. Jalen Green and Alperen Sengun, though, meanwhile, that might be one of the most dynamic 2-3s offensively in the league. You pair it with Jabari spotting up, and then Kim Whitmore, who they got the 20th pick. He's killing it right now. He had 8 steals last night in their summer league game. And I think talking about the depth, the coaching they now have, and the player at the top, I'm going to lean personally in the Rockets, even if the Spurs have 1 beat.
I actually couldn't agree more with John. I also was leaning towards the Houston Rockets. I think Jalen Green has Anthony Edwards-like potential. We've seen him score like that. We've seen him be a microwave scorer. We've seen him be very active on that side of the basketball. But as you said, it's everything else. The complementary piece with him and Sengun and how Jabari Smith has been looking in summer league so far. It's just time with this team, and I think time obviously is on their side, and I'm leaning towards Houston.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we like to think of the Rockets as the laughing stock in the NBA, but they're starting to turn this thing around for sure, and they're in a much better spot than probably people would have given them credit for just a year ago. So they're staying true to their rebuild. I think they've been saying they're doing it in phases. They're finally entering their phase 2 of their rebuild. So they're doing things the right way for sure.
What's your guys' pro comparison for him? I'm curious.
Man, I don't even know.
The two easiest ones I saw were like the Ringer called him Beanpole Zion Williamson.
No.
And then I was like, he reminds me a little bit of a bigger John Morant. That's how
I like the bigger John Morant one, but Ja's not the playmaker he is, nor the defender. Honestly, I don't think we've ever seen a dude like him come into the NBA. I'm not gonna lie. I was thinking Cade, but Cade's not that athletic.
There's taller John Wall.
Dude, I wish he had a mid-range game so I can say he's like a mix of Wall and Livingston. But the mid-range game ain't there yet.
Yeah, honestly, now that probably prospect Sean Livingston, like pre-injury Sean Livingston, would probably be the best comparison for him, just based on size and all that. I have a tough time comparing him to John Morant just because of the side and the defense. So I'd probably say Sean Livingston would be the best comp for him. But again, he's a one-of-one type of talent that we've probably never seen before. So the next matchup is the 3-seeded Grizzlies versus the 11-seeded Timberwolves. I'm going to take the Grizzlies here. It's pretty self-explanatory to me. I think having the number 2 guy in the young core being a guy like Jaren Jackson, who just won a Defensive Player of the Year, puts them over the edge of the Timberwolves pretty simply for me.
Especially that Desmond Bane's being counted in here, too. He got paid more than Ja for a reason. He keeps getting better every single season. So I thought the Mavericks, is that who the Grizzlies played last round? No. Last round, the Grizzlies played the Jazz. I thought it was a little bit closer than the voting indicated. I think this is comfortably the Timberwolves, too. Because after Ant and Jaden McDaniels, I think Naz Reid's good, but I don't quite think he's going to be on the level of Desmond Bane, an all-star. And so that's kind of like the needle mover on top of the fact that Jaren right now is just further along than Jaden McDaniels. Though to me, that's a wash. I think Jaden's going to be just as good personally down the line.
That's a bold statement.
It sounds like one, but Jaden McDaniels should have been first team All-NBA or first team All-Defense this year because, 6'9" wing that can protect the rim, gets around screens like he's a guard, can switch 1 through 4. Basically, does everything you look for. What we don't talk about is his offensive development. He's like a mid-range shooter. He can create a little bit for himself, and he's only 22 years old. And so he earned his minutes early on as a defender, but now he gets the opportunity to show himself as that secondary scorer alongside Annan. realistically, he's just as good of a shooter as Jaren, right? Like after Jaren's sophomore year, the consistency hasn't quite been there. And some of it's injuries too. But if J-Mac's been healthier, he's been a little more consistent offensive player. Dude, I think in 2 years, because Jaren's 24 or 23, turning 24, we're going to look back like, oh, these are two of the league's top defenders. But, they're both being ranked in the 30s. Maybe, let me tell you this. Jaren's going to be a top 30 player. J-Mac's going to be top 40, top 45.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Who are you taking here?
I'm leaning the Grizzlies very easily. I think, in my opinion, I'm just not a big fan of what the Timberwolves have going on structure wise when it comes to stability. But I just think the Grizzlies are a better team and they're more secure with their top end talent.
But now let me say this. A lot of people don't like what they've done last year because the Rudy Gobert trade was ridiculous. But what if they find first-round picks all around the margins, right? Like I look at Leonard Miller, and to me, he should have been a first-round pick. They got him in the second round. What do you guys think about that pick?
Exactly what you just said. He should have been a first-round pick. I think I had him at like 27 on my board, so he was right. He was a first-round pick, and he looked incredible in summer league. He's going to be a guy who could come in and play for them right away. I think a front court of Leonard Miller and Naz Reid off your bench it's a pretty good spot to be.
It's chaos. And then last year, one of my guys at Memphis was Jalen Duren. Another one was Josh Minot, who they got pick 45. And he is another one of those chaotic 6'9" wings who in summer league played well because he's bigger than everybody else. But he played well in the G League last year too. Plays well in summer league. I think that's another second round pick they got where they may have shipped off a lot of these future picks, but Tim Connolly was a great GM in Denver. And that one Rudy Gobert trade to me is going to look a lot better in a couple of years when you see what they're about to do in the draft. Because they've drafted well now. They have. So these two guys develop, man, and it changes to look at that trade a lot.
Yeah, they've definitely drafted well. It really kind of depends on what they do with Karl Towns going forward. That's kind of the needle mover for them, because I said it off the rip, but I'm sure I'm not the only one who said that Karl Anthony Towns and Rudy Gobert as your front court is not going to win championships. So they're not going to trade Rudy considering what they gave up for him. So Karl Anthony Towns by default is the odd man out. So it really depends what they do with him going forward. I mean, I got a report the other day that they were taking calls, but not about Karl Anthony Towns. They weren't looking to actively trade him at all. So I don't know what they do with him. I don't know what they get in return for him, but I mean, I think it's time to move on from Karl Towns for them. All right.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. So now we're in the semifinals here. So we got the Thunder versus the Magic and the Rockets versus the Grizzlies.
Yes, sir.
All right. So Thunder Magic. I'm going to take the Magic here. That might be a crazy pick. I think Paolo and Franz can compete with any two that the Thunder are going to put out there. I know that Shea is the best player of the bunch. I think Paolo could be just as good, if not better, than Shea. And then I think Franz is going to be a better NBA player than Giddey, than Jalen Williams, than Chet, all those guys. And then you look at the depth. They have Wendell Carter, who we mentioned before, who's a great young center, only getting better. Anthony Black, who I think honestly fits perfectly with guys like Paolo and Franz. He's exactly what the Magic have been trying to do for all these years. Have these height advantages at every position with guys who can make plays for others. They drafted Jet Howard, who, in my opinion, it was a questionable pick considering Grady Dick and Jordan Hawkins were still on the board and they needed shooting. And I think those guys are better pure shooters than Jet Howard. But again, another guy who's above the average height as a 2 guard or a 3, whatever he is. He's long. He could put the ball on the floor. And again, he's a pretty above average shooter. So I'm gonna lean the Magic here slightly.
Yeah, it's crazy that even the Magic shooters are like almost 7 feet tall. It is crazy to me that you picked the Magic, but you really think about it, Markelle Fultz qualifies too. And Markelle Fultz, who was injured his first couple of years in the league, is completely forgotten. But he is a pretty good NBA player, and he's become that the last year. If he gets healthy for a full season, you might see Markelle develop into an above-average starting point guard, not just a starter. I have to go with the Thunder, though. because there was an allure here with Ousmane Dieng and Josh Giddey. And I'm like, dude, you talk about big playmakers. You got Chet Holmgren, who's a playmaker at 7 feet tall. You get Cason Wallace, who's going to be coming off the bench. They got Ty Washington. I don't even know if he's on the team anymore. Like, that's how deep they are. And so, dude, the depth of this OKC core is one of a kind. And personally, I can't go up against this runway. There's never been a rebuild with a longer runway than what the Oklahoma City Thunder have now created. And the opportunity for them to make mistakes and continue to just, they're going to have miles to go on. I don't know how they fail here. This is quite clearly going to be a contender. With the Magic, we have to see still.
Yeah, I don't know if we have to see. I guess we do. I think they're both in kind of the same exact spot, just the Thunder have more guys, but I think they're right there. They both took a step forward last year. I mean, the Magic were incredible once Markelle Fultz got back from his injury last year. So I think they're both right there, and they're just development away from being real contenders from their top guys. And at a certain point, yeah, the Thunder have a more deep young core, but at a certain point, the depth doesn't matter. I'm a firm believer just in general with basketball. I think depth gets overrated by us in the media. I think we just like to find something to talk about, so we talk about depth. But at the end of the day, you need 5 guys on the court. You don't need 13 guys on the court. So
reasonable. No, that's reasonable.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards the Thunder here, and it's, as you said, with the difference between Paolo and Shea, what Paolo could be is tit for tat. And I think it comes down to the other 4 players, as you said, in the starting 5. I think a player like Chet Holmgren, obviously we haven't seen him play last season. I think he has potential to be a top 5 center in the NBA, and especially in this fit, in this core, around playmakers like Shea, around playmakers like Josh Giddey. I just think the way he could spread the floor is just going to create so much. It's a lot better spacing for them. I think instantly he's going to play a factor. I think the Thunder are going to be a top 6 seed in the NBA this year. So I'm going to lean towards the Thunder simply because I think the top end talent's better.
And top 6 seed something because that Western Conference is loaded. Absolutely loaded.
I think Chet's going to come and play a instant role. I mean, we saw the defense, how well the defense could translate, all about the offense and the shot.
It is really pretty nuts that they were a top 10 defense last year and not one of the better 3-point shooting teams in the league, and they're adding a 7-footer who's off the rip one of the best shot blockers in the league, who could also potentially shoot 38% from 3. Like, it's really not normal how well he fits there.
Dude, they're top 10 defense without a real center.
Yeah, it's actually nuts that he's gonna, any problems that they did have, he's gonna come in and instantly solve them. It's pretty wild. So the next semifinals matchup is the 2-seeded Rockets versus the 3-seeded Grizzlies. I had the Rockets losing in the last round, but in this round here, I'm gonna take the Rockets over the Grizzlies, just because simply they have more depth here. I think they have more of a chance of hitting, just because they have more guys who could potentially hit. I think a guy like Ja Morant, this might be a crazy thing to say, but I think Ja kind of is what he is. I'm sure he'll get minimally better. He'll improve in some things, but Ja kind of is who he is. Jaren Jackson's another guy who I kind of think he is what he is. Maybe the playmaking takes a little bit of a leap. Maybe the 3-point shooting becomes a little bit more consistent, but we kind of know what Jaren is. Desmond Bane's probably the only wild card there. But you look at this Houston team, they're just full of wild cards, full of guys who could develop into top 10 players in the league. You look at a guy like Amin Thompson. You look at a guy like Jalen Green. You even look at a guy like Alperen Sengun, who some people think is still the best player in that young core. And then you have these complementary guys potentially like Jabari Smith, who could potentially be more than a complimentary guy. Tari Eason, who I think is going to be one of the best role players in the league if he's not already. And then you still have a guy like Cam Whitmore, who had top 5 potential in this draft as the 8th man in the young core. So in this scenario, I'm going to take the Rockets over the Grizzlies.
And on the Ja Morant point, he can get better as a shooter, but he's one of those guys that definitely peaked early. So I don't think it's crazy to even really – that's a reasonable point through and through. I want to go with the Grizzlies here because they have the ready-made 3 stars. But like you said, similar to the Thunder, there are so many chances to hit on prospects here. I think Tari Eason could be a really good starter. Maybe a guy that averages 16 points with elite defense and 3.5 assists a game and 2 steals. So because of the depth and also Ime Udoka here, I'm gonna go with the Rockets. And I hate to agree. This is one of those things where you have to really sway away from the pack if you want to disagree with people. And I can't do it. I can't go up against this Rockets team because they've done a very remarkable job finding Alperen out to the lottery, Tari out to the lottery, and now Cam Whitmore out to the top 19. Like the work of the understanding. Let's just take the top prospect here, the guy with the most potential. They took Jalen at 2. I like the pick over Evan Mobley. I thought that was right for them. You then take Jabari Smith and Eamon Thompson. They've done it right. And now they have unlimited opportunity to build an awesome team.
I'm also gonna go with the Houston Rockets here. I just think, as Chris said, the ceiling is kind of capped. We know where the ceiling could be for the Memphis Grizzlies. We don't know where where ceiling could be for the team like the Houston Rockets. I just think the ability to have players 1 through 5 be able to put the ball on the floor in a half court set and just take it to the basket and create shots for other people is something the Grizzlies very much lacked. As we saw, they were one of the worst half court teams in the league last year. I just think Houston has all the potential in the world to be better than that. So I'm going to lean Houston here.
All right, so now we're in the finals. I'm gonna do a little intro in case I turn this into a TikTok. Who has the best young core in the Who has the best young core in the NBA? The OKC Thunder or the Houston Rockets? The Thunder have obviously Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Jalen Williams, Chet Holmgren, Josh Giddey, Kaysen Wallace, and Ousmane Dieng. And the Rockets have Amin Thompson, Alperen Sengun, Jalen Green, Jabari Smith, and Tari Eason, and Cam Whitmore. I'm going to go with the Thunder here. I mean, we've been talking about it for an hour. These are the 2 deepest young cores in all of basketball. I think simply the difference maker here is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander.
I agree. When we've been talking rebuilding teams and teams that have done the rebuild right, these are the 2 teams that have come to mind first and foremost. The Thunder have, me personally, I feel the Thunder have always been a step ahead in that rebuild. As you see, they have a star like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I think, as Chris said, that kind of what differentiates the 2 teams here. So I'm leaning the Thunder here.
I agree with that. But Ime Udoka might be the true separator as a guy that arguably was a top 5 coach in the 2022 season. Now he gets the responsibility of developing a core that to me is equally as deep. So I'm going to go. This is tough. I want to go with the Houston Rockets. But the biggest question of all is Eamon Thompson going to become as good as Shai Gilgeous-Alexander? If he does, then I'm comfortable going with Houston. But if the mid-range shot doesn't come along, he won't be as good as Shai, I don't think. So, screw it. I'm going with the Houston Rockets here. I believe in Ime. I think this young core is equally as good. And it's really just a matter of the guy at the top hitting the top 10 level. If anyone becomes that, there's no doubt in my mind they can be it.
100%. And as with both these young cores, it's very hard to choose between both of them because both of them are doing, as we said, this rebuild the correct way, and both of them have simulated a very good young core, a lot of picks in upcoming drafts. It's just a simplicity of the Thunder have just been doing it a little bit longer when push comes to shove.
Yeah, I definitely think that the Rockets other guys are more in a position to succeed. I trust the potential of the other guys more, but again, like I said, the difference maker for me is I'm more confident in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander being a top 5 to 7 player in the NBA for the next 10 years than I am with anyone on the Rockets. So that's that. That's the best young core in all of basketball. That was fun.
It was.
I enjoyed that. Ortiz, you have a TikTok segment for us?
It might be a little bit longer than a TikTok segment, but you can cut it up.
Yeah, it's just bang it out real quick.
Welcome to the NBA ladder. Oh yeah.
All right.
So I'm gonna ask you guys if you guys want to work together on this one because there's only 2 of you. If you guys want to work together and answer these questions. I have 15 questions here. Let's see if you guys could reach the end.
So they get progressively harder?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the first question is, what does NBA stand for?
National Basketball Association.
That's the correct answer.
Let's go.
Who was the NBA's youngest MVP award winner?
Derrick Rose.
Derrick Rose.
Yeah, I wasn't sure. You want to go one by one?
If you have the answer, just blurt it out.
Do you guys? It's up to you guys. Whatever you guys want to do. Who drafted Kobe Bryant 13th overall?
The Hornets.
Hornets are correct.
Who was he traded for?
Vlade Divac.
Yes, sir.
Boy,
let's go.
Which team holds the most regular season wins record? I said that weird. Hold on.
In a season?
In a season, yeah. Hold on. Which NBA team holds the most regular season wins?
So not in the season.
No, wait. It in the regular season.
Oh, my fault.
Oh, you're good.
I thought you meant like total wins, like in the franchise's history. I thought that's
in a single season. My apologies.
Yeah, the Warriors.
Yeah. All right. True or false? The Boston Celtics have more championships than the Los Angeles Lakers.
I always get this confused, honestly.
It's false. The Lakers got in 2020.
That's correct. False is the correct answer. And now things start to ramp up a little bit here.
All right, let's get it.
Who was the only player to win MVP, DPOY, and Finals MVP in the same year?
Hakeem.
Scott Skiles holds the NBA record for assists in a single game. How many assists did he have?
27 assists.
Nah, it's 29 or 30.
I have multiple choice here if you guys want it.
It's either 29 or 30. I don't know if he actually got 30.
He was versus Denver Nuggets, right?
Yes, it was. So we have 29, 30, 32, and 33.
I'm gonna go
29. It was 29.
29, yeah.
30 is the correct answer here.
Damn, that's nuts, bro.
Yeah, 30 assists in an NBA game is insane.
You think anyone will ever break that record?
No.
No, right?
Not in this NBA where everyone's just shooting the pill. Who is the last unanimous rookie of the year? I have multiple choice here again if you guys want to hear it. I have Damian Lillard, Michael Carter-Williams, Karl Anthony Towns, or Blake Griffin.
This is funny because there's more than one. The answer is Damian Lillard.
That's it. The answer is actually Karl Anthony Towns. Karl Anthony Towns won it unanimously in 2016.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Wow.
Let me tell you guys a story. I was in Vegas at the Through the Wire show, and this was an exact question they asked. And my boy to my left, Drew, said Dame. My guy to my right, Riv, said Blake Griffin. But we weren't going to get called on because before I blurred out Jason Tatum to a question where it's clearly not the answer, so they weren't going to call on us. So neither of them got they were both right. I had no idea it was Cat, though, because the answer to the question, they didn't say it was Cat. They said it was Dame.
Which is interesting because I looked it up and it said there were 5 unanimous rookie of the year winners. Damian Lillard was one of them. So was Blake Griffin, and so was Karl Anthony Towns.
No, you're right. I just checked. That's crazy because I after the show Google search and it didn't say Cat, but now that I search Cat unanimous MVP, it says yep or unanimous.
Rookie
of the year.
It's weird because I was on a trivia website for NBA and I looked up this exact question just to be sure with my knowledge, and it said Damian Lillard, and I got into a rabbit hole, and I was doing 20 minutes of research.
Yeah. No. Damn. Okay.
Paolo would have got it, right? Didn't one person vote for Walker Kessler?
Yeah.
He got 98 out of 100.
Yeah. Whoever votes in Utah was like Walker Kessler was better. So.
Hey, if you look at BPM, it's close.
Who is the first foreign-born player to go number 1 overall? But before you guys get confused, no college, strictly overseas. So he was drafted from overseas. He wasn't drafted from a U.S. college.
To go first overall?
Mm-hmm.
I think the answer is Andrea Bargnani.
No. Yao Ming.
It is Yao Ming. There were 2 players, actually. Andrea Bargnani was the other player in 2006.
Damn, 1 year before, right?
No, Yao Ming was
02.
Oh, he's 02. Right. Good looks.
Which of these NBA players have won the MVP and Finals MVP in the same year 3 separate times? I have multiple choice here. I got a Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Magic Johnson, Michael Jordan, or Bill Russell.
So they did it in the same year.
Yeah, MVP and Finals MVP.
I'm gonna just go with Michael Jordan.
Yeah. Michael Jordan's actually the only player to do it more than 3 times. He has done it 4 times.
Yeah.
LeBron James is an all-time leader in all NBA first-team selections with 13. Which of these players is tied for second with Kobe Bryant? We have Tim Duncan, Karl Malone, Bob Pettit, and Jerry West.
Jerry West didn't play enough years. He retired in 71. I'm going to go with Tim Duncan.
The correct answer is actually Karl Malone with 11. Tim Duncan, Bob Pettit, and Jerry West all were tied with 10.
Boo. That's us.
Ooh. Which of these NBA bigs has the most Defensive Player of the Year awards? We got Dwight Howard, Hakeem, Alonzo Mourning, or Dikembe Mutombo.
Dwight.
It's Dikembe Mutombo with 4.
Oh,
Dwight has 3.
Bro. We're on a cold streak. And by the way, I said West retired in 71. He did not.
Oh.
He retired in 74. So I was wrong on that, too.
Well, you sounded pretty confident, so I believed you.
Yeah, you did sound really confident in that.
Even
If you
won.
didn't correct yourself, I would have believed Jerry West retired in 1970.
Said it right away as soon as he finished the
right.
question. Well, Jerry West retired in 71.
Yeah, bro. It's not been a great trivia day.
Which of these NBA teams? What NBA team has made the most franchise finals appearances without winning a title? I have the Jazz, the Nets, the Magic, and the Suns.
The Phoenix Suns have lost all 3 times they've been to the finals. So I'm going to go with Phoenix.
I think it's Phoenix too, yeah.
Phoenix is the correct answer.
The other ones have only been there twice, right?
Yeah.
We got to redeem ourselves, bro.
Yeah.
Well, here we go. There have been 8 players to score 70 points or more. Name all 8 players.
Let's go one-on-one here.
All right. So Wilt's 1.
Devin Booker 2.
Mm-hmm.
Donovan Mitchell.
Yep.
Okay. Kobe Bryant 4.
Yes.
David Robinson.
Yep.
It's 5. Elgin Baylor 6.
Elgin Baylor 6.
David Thompson.
David Thompson. And there's one more.
That was the one I wasn't entirely sure on. The last player that dropped 70 points in a game.
He did it this year.
Oh, it's Damian Lillard.
It was Damian Lillard.
There we go.
That's all 8.
I was thinking of the 90s, dude.
And this is the last question.
Ooh.
Good luck, guys. In 71 NBA All-Star games, only 9 times has there been one team to have 4 selections for their respective conference. Name 5 of those teams.
Run that back. That was confusing.
So in 71, in however many All-Star games there in 71, there in 9 occurrences has there been one team to have 4 All-Stars named.
Okay.
Name 5 of those teams.
9 times that has happened?
Yeah.
I feel like that's a lot.
Right? I thought that was a lot too. I said only, but
I'm going to just get 2 right off the rip. The Hawks that year, and then the big 4 Celtics.
yes.
2014 Hawks, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was I think the 2015 Hawks. If you guys on
Something like-
bonus points, you guys can name
Something
me.
like that. The
Yes, we-
Atlanta Hawks with Jeff Teague.
Yeah.
And then the Celtics
South-
with Rondo
Carolina.
and all those guys.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I was 2015, Tim.
4 All-Stars.
I will say that they all have happened in our lifetime. You guys already got 2. There's been 4 before we were born, and then there's been 5 since we've been alive.
The Warriors. With Katie and all them.
They actually have 2 of them back-to-back years.
Okay.
Makes sense.
There's one more team, and it's before the Celtics. I'll give you that much.
I'm gonna go with the Pistons in 2005 after winning the championship.
Well, the Pistons are the correct answer. It was actually in 2006.
2006. Okay.
Well, good job, guys.
Were the Spurs on there at all?
The Spurs were not. No.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, that fourth star. Steven Jackson was close, probably, but not.
Yeah.
It's crazy though. The Hawks, the big four Celtics, and the Pistons didn't have a single starter. All four players just came off the bench.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
They didn't have a top 5 player on those teams, so.
Yeah. All right, we'll do one more thing really quick, and then we'll wrap this up. I think you guys are gonna like this one. Blind rank these basketball movies without knowing which one comes next.
Shit.
All right. First one, a classic. White Men Can't Jump. Not the new one with Jack Harlow.
The
The original one, yes.
And we've got 4.
With the West
Right.
I have 5 of them.
5.
Right.
I feel like White Man Can't Jump is. I think that's a steady baseline. I think 3 is a fair.
Totally agree. Put it in the middle.
All right. The next one, Like Mike. Now you guys are feeling the nostalgia.
Yeah. I don't know if I'm because there's so many good basketball movies. I don't know which one's coming next. Oh man. What do you think? What are you thinking here, John?
Okay. So I watched Like Mike a lot earlier in my life. I watched White Man Can't Jump recently. And because of that, I have Like Mike at 4.
I agree with that. I think Like Mike.
I want to put it slightly below because we're going to have 2 banners come in and you can't be caught lacking. So we're going to put it at 4.
4, yeah.
All right. The next one, Space Jam.
And I'm assuming this is the original Space Jam.
Yeah, not the one with LeBron, the one with Michael Jordan.
Yeah. It's hard not to put this. It's obviously going top 2, but where in the top 2?
Okay.
I mean, you think of basketball movies, you think of Space Jam. I think by default, it kind of has to go at 1. If you're disagreeing with me, let me know. I mean,
What basketball movie is better? Because nostalgia plays a pretty big role in this too.
yeah, that's what I think Space Jam is taking control of this. Was everyone knows Space Jam? Not everyone's. I don't know.
I really think of a movie that's better and kind of more meaningful to the basketball community. So I think it goes at 1.
All right. The next one, Coach Carter.
Fuck. Oh, this is a really good movie.
Yeah. Well,
I wish I could drop Like Mike to 5, but can't do that now. So it's either 2 or 5. Oh man,
we got to put this at 2, I think. What's he gonna hit us with next? Like Uncle Drew or a classic?
I think it's gonna be another classic.
Like what?
Maybe He Got Game for the next one. Above the Rim with Pac.
Yeah, no, we really should have put Like Mike at 5 too.
Yeah.
Damn.
So I guess we have to lock Coach Carter in at 2.
It's too good to be at 5. That'd
Yeah.
be disrespectful. I can't think of a movie off the top of my head that's better than Coach Carter for me would be number 1. But at 2, it's okay. It's more than reasonable. So we're gonna put it at 2.
So before I give you the last one, I know your answer to this, but I'm gonna ask John. Which movie are you taking? Coach Carter or Remember the Titans?
That's a good one. Coach Carter, I've watched more recently too.
I haven't
I'm
watched
gonna go
Coach
with Coach
Carter
Carter
in years.
personally. I think I have to. That movie, it reminds me a little bit of my time playing basketball too when my coach came in high school. So, like personally, it meant a little bit to me. So I'm gonna go Coach Carter.
For sure. All right. The final movie, He Got Game.
Knew it. Oh man, it sucks.
That's
It has
at
to go
5.
at 5, bro. That's probably one of my favorite basketball movies ever.
Damn, we really cooked ourselves, dude.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, no. This would go at 3 for me. Right in the middle, probably.
Yeah, I mean, sucks that it has to go at 5, but me personally, this is easily top 3.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. All right.
Good.
Well, that's the BallGame podcast. John, we appreciate you coming on, especially because it was so last minute. That was
Very much.
very
much
fun.
appreciated.
It
Yeah.
absolutely was a blast, fellas. Thank you for having me on. And yo, if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the Ball Game podcast, of course. And you can find me wherever you want, Twitter, YouTube, podcasts. You got me.
Yeah, for sure. What John said, subscribe if you're new, leave a like on the podcast. If you're listening on audio platforms, give us a 5-star. Check out all our socials in the description. Check out John's socials in the description. And that's it. With that,
BallGame, 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 BallGame.